Welcome everybody, thank you for tuning in for another review from our 2023 eMTB Shootout presented by Fox Racing and Schwalbe Tires. Today, we're going to be reviewing the Cannondale Moterra Neo LT2. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the Moterra Neo LT is a 165mm rear and 170mm front wheel travel e-bike with a Bosch Performance Line CX drive unit and 750 watt-hour battery.
It does climb pretty good.
And it comes with the Bosch LED bar-mounted remote and the Kiox 300 display screen. So Robert, let's get into the models and build specs and features of the LT.
Sure. This is the Moterra Neo LT2, the cheaper of the two builds, comes in at $7,500. They also offer the LT1, which comes in at $8,650 with slightly nicer sport parts spec. This LT2 has a fairly entry-level part spec for the most part. SLX drivetrain mixed with an XT rear derailleur, RockShox, Zeb Select fork, and Deluxe Select Plus coil shock. And it's meant to come with a set of Magura MT5 brakes, but this one comes with the SRAM code as I guess just a replacement for component availability issues, and then a WTB wheel set on there. And it tips the scales just shy of 58 pounds, so certainly not one of the lighter bikes on test, but it's fairly burly. All
right, so we opted for a size large. Most of our test riders are between 5'10" to 6'2". Get into the Geo on the large, Robert.
Yeah, so size large, 475mm reach, a 642mm stack. Rear end's quite long for a mullet bike at 452mm. The bottom bracket is fairly high with only 11mm drop, so it comes in at about 455mm, I think. 64-degree head tube angle, 76.5-degree seat tube angle.
Overall, I think the takeaway from the geometry from all of our testers, again, for this shootout, we've had the bikes for a while and put them under about 6 or 7 different riders in a pretty varied types of terrain. And the Cannondale was just there, right? Like it wasn't extreme or polarizing in too many areas other than, I would say, the long chainstays, right? The length of that rear end. But other than that, it climbed well. The relatively high BB combined with that Bosch drive unit was great for tackling technical climbs. The coil sprung rear end meant traction was great. We weren't striking pedals. Overall, just a pretty solid all-around bike. The only standout for me, geometry-wise, was again that slightly longer rear end. While it helped on the steep climbs and the technical climbs, I felt like the playfulness, and again, that is probably only exacerbated by that 58-ish pound weight, but it just felt like it was one of the lesser playful bikes when it came time to wanting to snap that back end around, and we got into some of those sandy pitches that we were kind of shredding and having fun on. It just felt like it was more comfortable going fast and straight. It would get up and pop and get airborne pretty well, weight aside, right? But it was a pretty poppy and lively suspension platform. I just think that wheelbase or that long rear end kind of kept it from wanting to come around so quick in the back end, which I personally like as a rider.
Yeah, sure. It's certainly not the playful bike on the test, but climbs well, and yeah, just kind of has a nice balance overall for, I guess, more adventure style riding. Just probably not going to be the bike you take to the park or whatever, right?
Yeah, unless it's, I guess, more of a new school park where speeds are high, it's rough and chunky, and you've got, berms, right? Like this thing will hold a line very well. I did notice the bike was a little bit louder than some of the others, whether that was kind of battery, sometimes it seemed like that coil, like the shock, like the spring was actually rattling a little bit, and we played with preload. We actually swapped springs back and forth for different weight riders, but it just seemed like sometimes there was more noise coming out of this bike than some of the others. I wouldn't say it was horrible or a deal breaker. but definitely something to note. And I think you talked about kind of like that all-around adventure rider.
Yeah.
I think that's a great candidate for this bike. Not to say if you're a shredder, you couldn't go out and have a blast on this bike, because we certainly did. All-day comfort, exploring, backcountry missions, definitely going to be a great option for the Moterra.
Yeah, kind of a hill climb champion as well. Plenty of weight on that front wheel to get you up some really nice and steep stuff. The power of the Bosch motor. It definitely does good there. I think just to be, you can still play on this bike, but you're going to have to give it more energy to do so, which isn't to our preferences for a lot of the time. Not all the time.
Ideal consumer, who do you think that's going to be?
Yeah, it's a solid all-around bike. It's probably going to be best suited to somebody who's looking to ride, I guess, slightly more wide open terrain, or just, log some longer miles, keep it nice and comfortable. Pretty solid for that, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say if you're like regularly riding, tight multi-use goat trails where you're threading the needle through a lot of stuff, or there's really tight switchbacks, may not be the ideal bike for you. But if you're going out backcountry, riding over really rough stuff, overgrown trails, or if you're kind of a self-shuttle DH guy who's spending time on really high-speed, rough, chunky, chundery downhills, also would be a pretty solid option there, I'd say. I mean, it felt composed, it felt solid. We took it on some pretty steep, rocky, gnarly stuff, and I don't think the bike ever really held us back in that situation.
No, not really. It's just, I'd say almost a little bit uninspiring at times, just when you want a little bit more back from the trail or just to play about a little bit more. Doesn't quite give you that, but otherwise does everything pretty well.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks, the Cannondale Moterra Neo LT.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was sketchy.
A bike that didn't let any of our riders down, however, maybe wasn't the most inspiring, playful, or lively, but that by no means doesn't mean it couldn't be the right option for you if you're looking to log in some big backcountry miles or have a comfortable long travel e-bike. I think weight's a bit high, but again, for some people that aren't really getting off the ground or needing to switch directions quickly, that may not be a huge issue. So if you have any questions on the Moterra or other bikes from our e-bike shootout, please leave them down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and be sure to check out all the other e-bike reviews from the 2023 eMTB Shootout. Thanks.